Hello. All right, so I'm here. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the magic of hackathons. So, verify I've got this. Yes. All right, so my name is Jay Freeman, as well, I was introduced a little second ago, but everyone online knows me as Sork. So, I grew up near Chicago, in the Midwest. I'm from around here, essentially. I teach at UCSB at the College of Creative Studies, however. UCSB is in Santa Barbara, California. I developed Cydia, the alternative to the App Store for jailbroken iOS devices. I am what is known as a gray hat hacker. Now, it's a different concept of hacking than what we're talking about today in a way. I mean, it's essentially the same kind of, like, it comes from the same tradition of the word, but it ends up meaning something different. So I'll admit, last night, very tired, driving back to my hotel room. Actually, I ended up stopping at Manny's in order to get one of those dub things. I ended up getting pulled over by a cop because I didn't know the speed limit inside the campus. And he's asking me what I was doing here, and I was explaining that I was at a hackathon. He's like, is that illegal or anything? I'm explaining to him what hacking means. But in the last 3 months, I've actually kind of gotten really involved in hackathons. I'm now on the steering committee for a hackathon that's going to be part of the California Higher Education Sustainability Conference. So my first, like I said, I think my first concept of what a hackathon comes from essentially movies like The Social Network. So a hackathon is a bunch of people in a room at a company working on some kind of concept really crazily, apparently really drunkenly. I'm not exactly certain this is really helping with the problem. But the kind of concept really resonates with me. So I was in college. We had a computer science laboratory, a really small one, in a really small college building inside the large university that I'm at. The edutainment lab. And we'd sit in there and we'd kind of work together on random quick projects. So I remember one day there was this challenge that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to build an integrated development environment in the next 5 hours. I'm going to have all of the text editing is going to be done using Vim, but it's going to have tabs that are going to be stored inside of the interface editor. It's going to control the Vim tabs and everything. And it was kind of people were you're playing Spotlight Coder, you're projecting up on the wall, people are cheering you on. It's kind of fun. So, but first real life concept of hackathon I think that I ended up hearing about was actually that this kind of hackathon's a group in public kind of an event. It's probably something like TechCrunch Disrupt. I'm going to be honest and I'm going to say that I was never really that excited about things like TechCrunch Disrupt. So TechCrunch Disrupt, a bunch of people are going in, they're trying to build company ideas over the course of the couple days that they're working on everything. And then everyone ends up presenting in front of a panel of judges who are judging you on things like whether it would be a good business. And then people are going to invest a ton of money. This is TechCrunch's picture from their Flickr account of how awesome this conference is that they're running. There's something about this kind of environment of we're going to construct a business that solves real world problems that you're going to get investment capital in by the next. It's not fun. I don't think you can do that. You're not going to actually succeed in one day of constructing something that's going to be worth billions of dollars necessarily. I mean, maybe you do, right? But I think that it kind of devalues what you can actually do with hackathons, what people are doing on days like this. So, stark contrast to the high production value of TechCrunch Disrupt, the iPhone Game Jam, which is run on a 360 iDev. This is a hackathon that I was at in 2009. This is something that I thought was just awesome. A bunch of people coming and together and saying, we're going to build a game tonight, we're going to present it tomorrow, we're going to see what we can do, we're going to break up into little teams. There was one guy who brought a fiddle with him, and he's sitting there and he's recording the music for other people who want music in their games, and it was a really fun environment that people were going in. And there were some games that actually ended up shipping. So there was a game called Hippo High Dive, one called Gravity Sling, ended up actually in the App Store, being big successful at the time. Enough that there's a company called Touch Arcade that ended up getting involved, sponsoring the hackathon the next year. You can see the drastically increased production value of the iPhone Game Jam. Now, this is an environment I kind of like to code it. Now that said, I probably was actually doing slide jam because I typically end up presenting at conferences and I'm sitting there all night working on slides, as I was for this conference until about 6 in the morning. But I do get to code in some crazy environments. You can barely see this. This is always a dark slide. This is me sitting in a club coding. For those of you who were at my talk yesterday, I also had this slide there. This is what's going on behind me. Now, a lot of hackathons, they look more like the pictures I was showing from iPhone the Game Jam. But if you get just the right angle, if you succeed in getting everybody to like sit in the right place, as was just happening a little bit earlier today, sometimes you can get a good shot that makes it look really fun and exciting, like everyone's cheering and doing something awesome. So this was the iPad Dev Camp, which was in 2010. The iPad had just come out, and they were saying, okay, everyone come and we're going to build some awesome iPhone software. Is anything at all involving an iPad? It's of course always interesting because I've got my HP Mini, and I'm really not developing for the iPad. So they, by the way, they actually got a picture. There was the guy who's running, well, one of the guys who's running the conference does this app that would let you project things on an iPad. So he was just going around getting pictures of everybody with Rockstar next to him. Now, what I really liked about iPad Dev Camp is that they made the concept of hackathons. They took away, they kind of destructured that whole like we're going to have this prize. It's like going to be like for changing the world essentially. And we're going to instead make it a bunch of fun prizes about doing things like using APIs in interesting ways. I almost describe it like a costume party. So they had tons of prizes. Coolest app, best use of PayPal API, most innovative, most useful, monetizable, accessible, hardware, game, social, user interface, open source, developer tool, best upcoming developer, web APIs, best web app, the Iron Man Award for the most helpful developer in the audience, somebody who's just going around and helping other people with their projects, which is something that I actually kind of think people doing these kind of college hackathons should think about. Because sometimes you end up with people who just kind of help make the event work, but they don't necessarily end up sitting on a team working the whole weekend in order to do something that ends up getting submitted. All right. They had, though, what I think is the best award ever, which was the best sacrifice to the demo gods. Because there's always somebody who ends up, you feel so bad for them because their demo just fails so horribly, and you're like, oh, it's so, So when they were going out there buying all little silly prizes for their hackathon, they ended up coming across this giant skull, which actually I think it had like 2 glowing eyes, and one of them was broken. Also, you go really far into a con. Can you imagine having to take back something like that with you? Yeah, so this is certainly a fail. And so they've got the alternative name for this prize. They've got or even Steve Jobs sometimes can't make the Wi-Fi work. So. Now, there are a lot of different kinds of hackathons, though. So another kind is more like the kind of corporate hackathon. So Discus, I always say Discus. They hate me for it, too. Discuss ran once. They called it was this guy here from Discuss who called it the Hackaday-thon thingy. Now, this is not actually a picture of the event. I could not find a single picture that anyone actually took of the Discuss hackathon. This is an internal Discuss hackathon, which I guess it's supposed to be more like what the Facebook hackathon that you would hear about was like. But our corporate hackathons oftentimes have this kind of a premise that you're going to utilize just that one company's product. You're going to figure out ways of utilizing it. Some people are always like, a little bit like, well, if you're just doing that one thing, maybe it's kind of limiting. Well, what if you had like a really open scope? And also, if you're using the API, where are you kind of going with the project? So on the alternative side of this, we have something like Science Hack Day. So Science Hack Day is run in San Francisco. Actually, no, I take it back. It's this one was run in San Francisco. Science Hack Day is an event that's run all over the world. If you'd like to run a Science Hack Day, you can contact them and run one. It tries to put scientists together with software developers in order to try to figure out how to help them with projects that they have that maybe are going to get turned into research in the near future. So that's actually me in the bottom right-hand corner there. I ended up working with some people, and so this is Mika McKinnon. She's the science advisor for Stargate Atlantis and Stargate Universe, and a friend of mine from college. We were working with the co-founder of a company called OpenROV, which does this underwater robot, remote operating vehicle, in order to look at things, I guess, underwater in the ocean, right? We were attaching a Connect to it in order to add different kinds of sensing functionality that apparently the people who were there said would be really useful to have. And so we were figuring out how to take the connected part and put it together back onto the device. But there are other people who were doing kind of things that were kind of crazy. So there was this the Dnakery, DNA curry. These people were working on constructing essentially a cocktail made largely out of DNA synthesis. They were doing the whole extraction process, which normally involves a bunch of solvents, and they figured out a way to do it just by using like heat and hot and cold cycles, so you could actually end up drinking the result. They figured out a way to mask the taste of the horrible salt that you end up trying to put in it. They seem to be enjoying themselves. All right, but this concept of a college hackathon, I think, is just awesome. And that's not something that I actually ended up experiencing until just a couple of months ago at SpartaHack, which was the hackathon that occurred at the university that I'm at. They like to say this is a beachside hackathon. And by the way, so one of the things I thought was really cool that they managed to pull off is this room and like another 2 spaces, and they managed to get most of the developers congregated in this really dense packed space. So you like walk in, and you could like just kind of see everybody working on stuff and kind of go wander around. And there's something to that like of course when you have a much larger hackathon, it's gonna be really difficult to actually pull that off. I mean, this was I think under 300 people, but I ended up giving a talk there. And of course, somebody ended up saying, walk SB hacks, and the first thing I see is Sorg walking around with ukulele seems about right. It's always unfortunate when I go long distances, when I fly, I don't bring musical instruments around me with me. But my first impression of coming to SB hacks was from the beach. So the beach is actually, if you just go around that corner, there's actually like actual sand. This is a lagoon that was the opening ceremony was done on a platform out there. In stark contrast to a month later when I come to Hack, Illinois, and they essentially built an igloo, right, in order to have it, for any of you who were there, in order to run this event. It was supposed to be Arctic themed, but I mean, the Arctic was actually very serious. By the numbers, 900 hackers, 180 projects, 8 inches of snow. I ended up spending a bunch of time just in the middle of the night digging my car out from underneath tons of snow, shoveling a parking spot on my propel that I could actually put my car, and it was, at least I'm from the Midwest, I know what to do. Apparently, you know the little scraper thing you always want to make sure you have in your car? They bought a bunch of those to give to sponsors who had no clue what they were getting themselves into. So, when I was at this event, I was at the opening ceremony, they were going through talking about a bunch of different APIs and a bunch of different prizes, and I was like, wow, this is really awesome, all these things. And I was supposed to stand up and give like a little 2-minute introduction to the tech talk that I was going to be giving. I ended up telling people that I wanted to do contest prizes similar to that best sacrifice to demo gods, which was best compiler error. I ended up sending a few people Polaroid Q. The ones that were the awesomest was a backslash in C++ / comment, which actually continues the comment to the next line. The problem with this is that the syntax highlighter didn't tell you that that was still a comment. And so they were like, I don't understand. Why am I getting a syntax error 3 lines later? Somebody had a Java Ant dependency analyzer bug where it was like they were just trying to compile their project and getting an array index out of bounds in the analyzer. Another person was unable to open the playground in Xcode, and then when they tried to go file the bug, they couldn't because the radar at Apple didn't work. This was a fun one because Apple was at the event, so I was actually getting a text message from somebody who was at Apple saying like, hey, you know, this is a fun one you don't want to come back for. I compiled an error that's like actually we couldn't even file. So, but now when you talk about like the companies that come to these events, so some of them just make a lot of sense. And so Firebase is something. I mean, as the guy who stood up, people who use Firebase do tend to win these types of events. So it makes a lot of sense to me to Firebase. This is actually me sitting with Andrew Lee, one of the co-founders of Firebase, talking to them about security issues with Firebase API, which now they were really excited about getting the right thing in place, and they got, I think, pretty much the right thing in place. So, but at Hack Illinois, John Deere was there. I was like, this is awesome. What are they doing here? Yeah, actually, wait a second. Oh my God. All right, so John Deere API enables both agriculture and construction industry software to securely access agronomic, machine, and logistics data. All right, so this is from their developer website. And that slide was supposed to be much earlier, clearly, right? All right, so John Deere, like people were actually like excited to use this API. There were people who were like going to the booth, getting help, actually setting up projects, and then there were 2 people I guess are right here. I thought this project was awesome. They ended up becoming the idea of getting information on all the farm equipment that come back to your Pebble watch. Deere watch. This was John Sampson and Michael Weber, so they actually come from a farming background themselves, like their family, and so it was something that really ended up clicking together all this stuff. I was like, this is just absolutely amazing. All right, so at this event, right, so Union Pacific is here, and I have some friends who are just really into trains. So now, of course, it's always a little bit awkward. You know, many sponsors this event, and I thank you all for being here. But there was just something to me that was interesting about Union Pacific. They don't even have an API. But they managed to figure out that using an event like this in order to meet a bunch of interested college students to be able to tell them about their company and then to sponsor prizes that are related to the things that they do, in this case, operations management, but they've been actually doing different things. I started looking into the background of them in different events. In the past, they've done things in computer vision because they say they use a lot of computer vision in keeping track of trains somewhere. I don't know, a little bit over my head in some cases, but I ended up taking a picture of their the presentation part and sending it all their friends by text message. But I kind of get the impression from what I've been talking about with some of the people who've been here that Whirlpool in a way stole the show with a bunch of really dense packed group of people. This is Whirlpool's first hackathon. And so they actually brought with them like equipment and packets, like computer-controlled packages of Tide in order to give people. There's actual API specifications for like communicating with your washer or dryer and for a commercial setting. Kind of awesome. By the way, this is a local company. I don't know who many people actually knew this. It's not terrible. It's about an hour and a half away in Benton Harbor, Michigan. So I just didn't know if that's part of why they're here. It's something that actually I realized at Santa Barbara. There's a company that I'd never even heard of that was just a few blocks from where I live that does heat infrared cameras. That they brought a bunch of these cameras to the SpartaHacks and actually find out these companies that are right here. So. Hackathons themselves are also something that people have been hacking on. So this is the judging process that was going on. It was using some software from MIT that has been constructed for the purpose of doing normalization on hackathons. And I think that's kind of cool. It's kind of like this community of people who've been kind of building up and working on this like awesome experience and building up over time. There's also kind of been little traditions start building. So like at Hack Illinois, they were doing the Nerf battles. And here, they actually bought Nerf guns for everybody, so we could actually have, a Nerf battle, which I think was an interesting choice, by the way, to do it across the food. Like Nerf guns in the, Nerf bullets in the darts. That's the word. Nerf darts sitting, inside the cookie boxes and everything. But I hope that this kind of tradition continues. Most of all, I just want to tell everybody or ask everybody, just keep getting out there, keep going to events like this. Keep being inspired by others and keep inspiring others. Then also, if your college doesn't have an event like this, consider bringing this idea back. Consider setting one of these up yourself and actually keeping this tradition alive. But most of all, wherever you go in life, just don't stop hacking. Thank you.